"If you don't want to go to the nursing home, get a job," my son said. His words hung in the air like a knife suspended midair, waiting to drop. He stood there, arms crossed, in the very kitchen I once sold my wedding ring to remodel for him. The same boy whose school lunches I'd skipped meals to afford. I didn't argue. I stood up, slowly, deliberately, and smiled. He didn't notice the way my hands trembled as I folded my apron. Or maybe he did, and he didn't care. I went upstairs, opened my suitcase, and started packing. I didn't cry, not this time. I'd run out of tears years ago, somewhere between his father's funeral and my first loan payment for his business. An hour later, a luxury car honked at the gate, the kind that made neighbors peek through curtains. My son frowned. "Who's that?" he asked. I zipped the suitcase shut. "My ride," I said. The driver stepped out, opened the back door, and there he was, Elliot Ward, my new husband. The man my son thought was just an old friend from church. He wasn't. And the look on my son's face when I walked out of that house for the last time, that was the first taste of justice. I met Elliot 6 months ago, the day I collapsed at the bank. My son had forgotten to transfer money for my bills again. I was faint from hunger and embarrassment when Elliot stepped forward, offering me a glass of water and a handkerchief. His eyes were kind but sharp, like someone who'd seen the world chew people up and spit them out. He was widowed, retired, and very, very wealthy. But that wasn't what drew me in. It was his quiet understanding of humiliation. He'd been betrayed too, by a son who tried to sell his inheritance before the old man had even taken his last breath. We started meeting for coffee, then dinners. He never asked about my son, and I never offered much. Just enough truth to keep him close, enough silence to keep him curious. I didn't marry Elliot for money. I married him for power. The signs of my son's betrayal had started years ago, subtle at first. Phone calls cut short when I entered the room. Receipts for vacations he claimed were business trips. The way his wife stopped calling me Mom and started calling me Margaret. Then I found the paperwork. His signature on a document transferring the house deed into his name. My name was gone. The house I'd paid for, my security, my history, stolen under the pretense of simplifying estate matters. I remember sitting at the kitchen table that night, staring at the document, feeling nothing. Not rage, not sorrow, just a cold, clinical silence. That silence became my weapon. Elliot had connections, a lawyer and accountant, and a reputation that could bend rules without breaking them. I didn't tell him everything at first. I let him think my son was just distant. Then one evening, as we sat watching the sunset from his balcony, I handed him the deed. He read it. His jaw tightened. "He took your house?" I nodded. He poured 2 glasses of wine. "Then we'll take something back." The plan unfolded slowly, like a chess game. I knew my son's business was struggling. Too many loans, too many shortcuts. Elliot quietly bought those debts under a holding company. Then, through another proxy, he purchased the building my son's office was in. When the eviction notice came 6 weeks later, my son panicked. He called me for the first time in months. "Mom, I might need to stay with you for a while." I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "I'm afraid I've moved." To him, I was still poor, living alone in that old house he'd taken from me. He didn't know Elliot had bought it back in my name, quietly, legally, irrevocably. The final act was simple. I invited him for dinner. He arrived early, looking disheveled, desperate. He glanced around the house, confused. You're back here?" "Yes," I said. "My husband insisted." When Elliot entered, my son's face turned pale. Recognition flickered. He realized then who had signed the letters, who had bought his debts, who now owned his office building. Elliot smiled politely. "You must be the young man who told your mother to get a job." My son stammered something about misunderstanding, about family, about forgiveness. I watched him squirm, then leaned forward, voice steady. You told me to work, so I did. I worked on myself, on my future, on my freedom. Silence. Heavy, final. When he left that night, he didn't look back. Neither did I. Now, as the luxury car rolls past the gate and the house shrinks behind me, I feel no guilt. He taught me how to survive without love. I taught him how to live without power. Elliot reaches for my hand. You did the right thing, he says softly. I smile, watching the reflection of my old home fade in the rearview mirror. I know, I whisper. I finally got a job.